Good morning, children. Now we are going to see the fourth unit poem, that is The Spider and the Fly by Mary Botham Howitt. Now we will just go to the poet. We will just learn something about the poet. In fact, she is not only a poet, she is also an author. But now since we are dealing with her poem, now we will call her as a poet. She was born in the year 1799 on 12th March and she died in the year 1888 on 30th Jan. And she was born at Colford in Gloucestershire in England. And you can see she was not educated in schools as we are being educated. She was educated at home and she used to read a lot of books. She had a wide range of reading habit. Then she used to write at a very early age, at a very young age. She started writing, and she started once she got married to William Howitt. He was also an author, and so both together with joint authorship, they released at least 180 books. They published at least 180 books. And in the year 1829, she wrote many poems, out of which The Spider and the Fly was published in the year 1829. And at that time, they used to write along or joining with some other literary figures or writers or authors like Charles Dickens, Elizabeth Barrett Browning and others. They used to join together and write books together. And from the year 1837, she stopped writing poems and she started writing stories for children. And it was becoming very successful at that time, and so she stopped writing all the rest and she started only writing stories. Later on, we come to know she was the first person to have started writing translation. That is, for example, Hans Christian Andersen's fables. You know what fables are? They are all stories, fictional stories that are based where they have human qualities. Animals and plants or inanimate objects will have human qualities, and these type of stories, in fact, Hans Christian Andersen had written, he is from Denmark, he is a Danish, in the dance language. So the world wouldn't have been able to read all his beautiful fables. So what happened? She started translating all his work. And that is how the world came to know about all his work. So she was the first English translator. And she had written lots of books. She was a prolific writer. So we come to know about this, a little about this poet. Now let's go into the poem. Okay, now we are going to go into the poem. Now the poem is titled as The Spider and the Fly. And our poet is Mary Botham Howitt. Now let's go to the poem. First, I will read the poem. Before that, those who have your textbook, please open your textbook to this poem. You can go through with your poem. You can have a pencil in your hand. You can start marking. But those who don't have, you can watch this. Now, I'll read the poem first, then we will go to the explanation, then we'll go to the poetic device. Now, let's see. The Spider and the Fly. Mary Botham Howitt. Will you walk into my parlor? Said the spider to the fly. It is the prettiest little parlor that ever you did spy. The way into my parlor is up a winding stair, and I have many curious things to show when you are there. Oh, no, no, said the little fly. To ask me is in vain, for who goes up your winding stair can never come down again. I am sure you must be weary, dear, said with soaring up so high. Will you rest up upon my little bed, said the spider to the fly. There are pretty curtains drawn around, the sheets are fine and thin, And if you like to rest a while, I'll snugly tuck you in. Oh, no, no, said the little fly, for I've often heard it said, they never, never wake again who sleep upon your bed. Said the cunning spider to the fly, dear friend, what can I do to prove the warm affection I've always felt for you? I have within my pantry good store of all that's nice. I'm sure you are very welcome. Will please take a slice. Will you please take a slice? Oh, no, no, said the little fly. Kind sir, that cannot be. I've heard what's in your pantry, and I do not wish to see. Sweet creature, said the spider, you're witty and you're wise. How handsome are your gauzy wings. How brilliant are your eyes. I've a little looking glass upon my parlor shelf. If you will step in one moment, dear, you shall behold yourself. I thank you, gentle sir, she said, for what you are pleased to say, and bidding you good morning now, I'll call on another day. The spider turned him round about and went into his den. For well he knew that the silly fly would soon come back again. So he wove a subtle web in a little corner sly and set his table ready to dine upon the fly. Then he came out to his door again and merrily did sing. Come hither, hither, pretty fly, with a pearl and silver wing. Your robes are green and purple. There's a crest upon your head. Your eyes are like the diamond bright, but mine are dull as lead. Alas, alas, how very soon the silly little fly, hearing his wily flattering words, came slowly flitting by. With buzzing wings she hung aloft, then near and nearer drew, thinking only of her brilliant eyes and green and purple hue, thinking only of her crested head, poor foolish thing. At last, up jumped the cunning spider and fiercely held her fast. He dragged her up his winding stair into his dismal den, within his little parlor, but she never came out again. And now, dear little children, who may the story read, to idle, silly, flattering words, I pray you never give heed unto an evil counselor, close heart and ear and eye, and take a lesson from this tale of the spider and the fly. Now, we read the poem. Now we are going to see what is happening in this poem, what the poet is trying to tell us through this poem. Now, if you see, the spider is considered to be the predator. And who is a predator? Predator is something that kills and eats up something. And prey is the one who is being killed. So here the predator is the spy and the fly is the prey. Now when you talk about characters, there are three characters in this poem. One is the spider, one is the fly, and next is the author or the poet. Now let's see the predator. Now the spider, the main idea is for the spider to make the fly come into his web and finish him off. That is the idea. But now you must see how the spider is trying to attract the fly to his web. So now let's see. And he is not trying to be very frank and all. He is very malicious. He is very cunning. So let's see how he uses his cunningness. First, will you walk into my parlor? So he is inviting the spider. That is a very charming invitation he is giving to the spider. So it's a invitation, come into my parlor. So it's welcoming him to his parlor. Parlor, you know, is a room in the beginning where you invite guests inside. And this whole poem is in a dialogue. Dialogue is a conversation. So now, if you see here, will you come into my parlor, said the spider to the fly. So here, the fly is a bit distrustful. Fly is not believing. There is a mistrust here. And if you see, he knows that the spider is always dangerous. So he says, he is not interested. There is a mistrust on the side of the fly, and he is calling him openly. Then, it is the prettiest little parlor. So he is attracting by saying, it is a beautiful parlor that ever you did spy. That means what spy here means, when you watch secretly. When nobody is watching you looking, watch secretly. And if you see here, now he is telling the parlor is so beautiful, you would have spied it earlier. You would have seen that without us knowing earlier. The way into my parlor is up a winding stair, and I have many curious things to show when you are there. So he is telling, if you come inside, I will take you to my parlor, and you can come to my many curious, pretty, beautiful things. There are many pretty things. That is, curious things are, pretty things are found there. And the winding staircase, that is also curious here means he is trying to show that curiosity, he is trying to arouse the curiosity of the fly. And he is trying to attract his attention. There are pretty things, there are mysterious, it's very mysterious. The winding stairs. Winding stair means very, very mysterious place. Mysterious means a place that we don't know what is inside. We are not aware of. And here in the last two lines of the stanza, you will come to know that he is trying to share some of his secrets with the friend. And usually with a friend we are very close, we like to share secrets, and here the fly is considered as a friend. So he is showing as if he is very friendly and he is inviting. Then, what is the reply of the fly to the spider? So the fly is telling, no, it is vain. Vain means useless. All your inviting, all your things that you are saying is all useless, because I know it has been already said, for who goes up your winding stair can never come down again. So what does it mean? That is the meaning here means that surely if I enter your web, I will be killed. And so it is already known. So it says, you cannot try anything with me, because already the fly is wise enough to know what will happen if you enter. He is not going to come back again. So he is telling it is no use. So he declines. First time he outrageously he declines, telling I am not going to come. Then come to the next stanza. He says, now in the next stanza the spider is trying to feign concern. Feign here means pretend. Pretend that he is concerned about the fly. Now what he says, see, I'm sure you must be weary, dear, with soaring up so high. That what does he say? I know you will be very tired, because usually we know what height a fly can go. A fly cannot go as high as a seagull and all that. But here, see the exaggeration, soaring up so high, as if the fly is flying very high, and because of the whole day of flying, it is so tired. And he is very, he is so upset, he is worried that the fly will be very tired. And what is he telling? He is also telling him that, will you rest upon my little bed? Now he is inviting the fly to come and take a rest on his little bed. There are pretty curtains drawn around. The sheets are fine and thin. And if you like to rest a while, I'll snugly tuck you in. So what is he telling? My little bed is very cozy, and there are curtains drawn around which will be very dark, and which will be very, when place is very dark and nice, you feel like sleeping. And this darkness will be not only dark, it will be cool also inside, and fine and thin. Usually the cobwebs, if you notice, it is very, very silky and thin, smooth. So he is telling it is fine and thin. And usually a traveler, if he is very thirsty, when you offer water, how do you feel? You feel as if you are quenching in the thirst, you feel very happy. So he is telling him to come and take rest in his little bed. And this bed is so, his bed sheets are so thin and fine, where he will be cozily tucked inside. Snug here means comfortable. He will be very comfortable. He can take rest here. And here you must be careful. Here once, already before we saw, can never come down again. That's what the fly says. So here you can understand, if he goes there, he can either temporarily sleep or he can permanently sleep. That is death. Then, what is the reply of the fly? The fly says again, oh no, no. Said the little fly, for I have often heard it said, they never, never wake again who sleep upon your bed. See, now the fly is answering very wisely. He is telling, no, I know, we will never come out. We will sleep forever in that bed. We know that. So I will not come. That's what it says. And very, very, what is it? He is very stern the way he says, no, no, I will not step inside. And he is also very alert. He knows what will happen. And so, he becomes firm in his refusal. Now, let's go to the next one. Said the cunning spider to the fly, dear friend, what can I do? Here you can see that he is trying to be very friendly with the fly. Gestures of friendliness. So, you can say he is becoming very friendly. Now, he is telling this part. Here he says, you see, usually you try to stop a friend or you say no to a friend, you feel guilty. So he wants him to feel that guilt if he refuses. That is the idea that the spider is trying to give here. To prove the warm affection I have always felt for you. As if the spider really likes the fly and he is very friendly with the fly. I have within my pantry good store of all that's nice. So pantry is a place where you keep all your reserves of food. And he says, I have lots of food kept in my pantry and you can come have a look and you can even eat out of that pantry. And you can sample it out. And I am sure you are very welcome. Will you please take a slice? See, now you can see that the spider is very, very desperate. He is trying to attempt again and again. First, he thought within the first call, the fly will come. But then again, the fly is very clever. Then now he is trying to attract him with his pantry and by giving him lots of food to gain trust and become very friendly. And he feels that if he tells like this, slowly the fly will feel bad and guilty that he is not accepting his friendliness. So what he does, this time you see the fly has understood that the spider is calling him in a friendly way, and so how it slowly the firm thing that he has not accepted before, now slowly he says, oh no, no, said the little fly. Kind sir means he is politely telling, the fly is politely telling that it cannot be, no, I cannot. I've heard what's in your pantry. So what will be in the pantry? He already knows that will be all the skeletal things of what the spider had already eaten up. All the flies, skeleton, all will be there. So he says, how vicious, or how all the victims who had already died before him, all only will be found in the pantry. And he says that he does not wish to say, he is not interested in seeing that. So immediately the spider feels bad. Then he again starts another scheme. Now he starts another thing. He says, sweet creature. Now he is starting to use flattery. Flattery means false praise. He is trying to praise him. And this praise is not true praising, false praising. That is, he is starting. Sweet creature, said the spider, you are witty and you are wise. You're witty means you're very humorous, and you're wise, you're very knowledgeable and all that. He says you're very, very wise, you're filled with wisdom. And he's also telling, how handsome are your gauzy wings. So the wings of the fly is looking very handsome, and it is very, very brilliant. The colors are so bright. That is the eyes. The eyes colors are very, very bright. So brilliant are your eyes. So how is the wing? Gauzy wings, and it is also, the eyes are also bright, brilliant. I have a little looking glass upon my parlor shelf. If you will step in one moment, dear, you shall behold yourself. So what does he say? He's telling, I have a beautiful mirror. Looking glass means a mirror which we use to look at our face. He's telling, it's on my parlor shelf. If you want, you can have a look at your face on that looking glass, and you can see how beautiful you look. And it will just take one moment. One moment means just a few seconds, that's all. And you shall behold yourself. Behold means you will see for yourself how beautiful you look. Your beautiful gauzy wings, your bright eyes and all that. And this one moment can also mean one moment for the fly to admire himself on the looking glass, and one moment for the spider to pounce on him and catch him. Next, what is the reply of the fly? I thank you, gentle sir, she said, for what you are pleased to say, and bidding you good morning now, I'll call another day. Now you can see, I thank you, gentle sir, she says. Now she never, in the beginning you would have noticed, her refusal is very openly seen. No, no, very firm. Then again in the second time you see, no, no, never, never. So you can see the firmness. Then in the third stanza you see, no, no, she says, but in a more polite form. So that's slowly coming down. The refusal, the intensity is decreasing. Then you can see in the next stanza, I thank you, gentle sir. So here you can notice that she is slowly, the firmness is coming down. For what you are pleased, but she says, now she never says, I will never come in. She says, we will see. We may meet on another day. Then, what does the spider say afterwards? The spider now is gaining some feeling of that the fly is going to accept. The fly never said that it is going to come. It's going to come into his parlor. But the spider has already grasped the feeling that the fly is going to fall to all his scheme. So what does he do? He is telling, the spider turned him round about and went into his den. So now the spider has understood that the fly is surely going to fall in its trap. So what is he telling? He turned towards his web and he is going into his den. Den is usually a place where the lions will, that is the lion's house. And here if you notice, the den is compared to the web here, because the den is a place where any person, any human being or animals or whatever enters the den will never come out. Same way here you can understand the spider's web, whoever enters will never come. And for well he knew the silly fly would soon come back again. So now you can see the fly is surely going to come back again. The spider is sure of now. So he wove a subtle web in a little corner sly. So what you see is slowly, subtle here means he has noticed and now he is sure that the fly is going to fall in its trap. And so he is slowly gloating. Gloating here means he is thinking to himself that surely the fly is going to come, and he has a very cruel idea of how to finish the fly. So he has already prepared, and he has understood that the fly has fallen, and now he is getting ready and set his table ready to dine upon the fly. So usually we eat at a dining table, and here he is setting his table. So he is getting ready to eat up the fly, and usually a guest, we will dine with them. Dine means we eat along with them. But here, see, it is said to dine upon the fly. That means it's going to eat up the fly. He is going to dine on the fly. So now we can see the spider is already, now he has nearly 80% he has confused or he has made the fly accept. So now the spider is ready. Now let's go here. Then he came out to his door again. So the spider got his table all ready. Now he is coming back to the door and merrily did sing. Why do you think merrily? Because now he knows the fly is going to fall and so he is very happy. He is singing. Come hither, hither. That means come here. Hither means here. Pretty fly. Now he is telling, you are looking very pretty, beautiful, with the pearl and silver wing. Previously he said gauzy wing. Now he has added up a little, pearl and silver wing. So here you can see that he is using his flattery even more. It is seen openly. He is flattering, praising the, you know how a fly's wing will be. But here he is comparing it to a pearl and a silver. And also your robes are green and purple. Now maybe the color of the fly would have been greenish and purplish. So he says your robes, the clothes that you are wearing are green and purple. There is a crest upon your head. The crest means the crown. Crown is there on the head, usually the antenna which is found on the head of the fly. Then your eyes are like the diamond bright, but mine are dull as lead. So he says now the brilliant, beautiful eyes have changed to diamond bright. And now he is comparing himself to the fly. He says, you look so bright and beautiful, colorful and all that. But I look as dull as a lead. Lead is in fact black in color. And so he says, I look so dull. Alas, alas, how very soon this silly little fly. Alas here means a poetic lament. Lament is cry. It's crying. That is, oh no. That is the meaning here. That means the fly's doom has come. The end. End. That is the fly is slowly beginning to fall for its vanity. Vanity means pride. Because the spider slowly started working on the beauty of the fly, and slowly the fly started becoming proud that he was very beautiful and he was more beautiful than the spider. And so what happened? She started slowly falling for the flattery that the spider was using on him. Hearing his wily flattering words came slowly flitting by. Now see, the fly said it will come on another day. But here what happened? It was still hovering around the web. It was going on moving around the web. Maybe it wanted to listen to more of praises. We don't know. So the wily, the cunning little spider, hearing all the cunningness, but this flattering words, what did the fly do? It slowly came flitting by. Flitting by means moving towards the web. With buzzing wings, she hung aloft, the nearer and nearer drew. So she started coming closer to the web. Thinking only of her brilliant eyes, green and purple hue. Thinking only of her crested head, poor foolish thing. So she was so drowned in her pride that she was so beautiful, so colorful that she had completely forgotten all her wise thoughts, her wisdom, everything turned into foolishness. So vanity, as the wisdom that the fly had in the beginning, became a foolishness at the end. And now we'll go to the next. At last, up jumped the cunning spider and fiercely held her fast. He dragged her up his winding stair into his dismal den, within his little parlor, but she never came out again. So now what happened? At last. The at last here means the spider at last has finished this thing. He is successful. He jumps, pounces upon the fly and fiercely holds her and drags her into his web. And he drags her into the winding stair that is inside the web and pulls her into the den. Den is the web again. where he takes her to the parlor and keeps her, uses her, eats her up on the at the dining table. So now the fly has become a victim, and at the end, whatever the fly was afraid of, that is what happened to the fly. At last, the fly never came out again as the previous victims of the spider. And the last stanza is now, I told you there are three characters. One is the spider, who is the predator. Then I said the fly, who is the prey. And the third character is the poet. Here, till now the conversation was between the spider and the fly. In the last stanza, the poet is openly talking to the readers, us. That is, and now dear little children. So whoever may read this, she is addressing us. Who may the story read? To idle, silly, flattering words. So she says, idle, silly, flattering words mean, that is, useless, sweet talk. So flattering words, she says, sweet talk. That is to lure the people to you, to bring the people to you. I pray you never give heed. So she says, don't listen, don't trust these type of people. This is the way the people will treat. Here, there are people like the spider and there are people like the fly. There are people who try to use you, there are people who try to cheat you. So, don't listen to these sweet talk. Please be careful. Don't trust anyone. Unto an evil counselor, close heart and ear and eye. Usually, a counselor is a person who advises or gives a better, make the people have a better life. But here she says evil counselor. Evil counselor is a person who will try to destroy you, finish you up. So don't listen to an evil counselor who has a close heart, ear and eye. Close heart, ear and eye means a person who is not listening to you. He only is listening to himself. He wants to see what he wants from the others for his purpose. So you must be very careful and take a lesson from this tale of the spider and the fly. And this will be a lesson for everyone, because there are people who are just waiting like the spider to catch us as a prey. And here the poet is counseling and she says, it is better not to talk to anyone. Be careful to whom you have to listen to. Be very, very careful. Now we will go to the poetic device. So long I taught you the appreciation. That is, I have taught you about the poem. Now let's see the poetic device. Now your poem has 7 stanzas. Now in the 7th stanza you will see all are not equally or evenly divided. Your 7 stanzas, if you see the first 6 lines is one stanza. Then the next 6 lines is another stanza. So 1, 2 stanzas. Then you have the next 6 lines. This is again the 3rd stanza. Then the next 6 lines is the 4th stanza. Then if you see, these are the 6 line stanzas, 4 stanzas we have come. Now you have the next type of stanza which has 8 lines. So this plus this, 4 lines. So 8 lines will be your 5th stanza. Then the next 8 lines will be the 6th one, 6th stanza. That is from here to here. This will be another 8 lines. That is again your 6th stanza. Then the last 4 lines is your 7th stanza. So this is how your poem is divided. So first 4 stanzas comprises of 6 lines each. Then the next 2 stanzas comprises of 8 lines each, and the last stanza is only 4 lines. Now when we see the spider, you will see the beginning, the figure of speech. Or we will finish the poetic device first. The poetic device is equal everywhere. Now if you see, you have to see the rhyming scheme. Rhyming scheme, see the first 6 lines. Take it. That is fly, the last word of each line. Fly, spy, stare, there, vain, again. This last two lines are one line. So, you must take these last two as one. So, it will be like this. So, A, B, C, C. This is how it goes. Again, next one. High, fly, thin, in, said, bed. Again, it follows the same pattern. A, B, C, C. Now again, when we come to the third stanza, do, you, nice, slice, B, C. Again, it follows the same pattern. A, B, C, C. Then again you go to the fourth stanza. Wise eyes, shelves, yourself, say, day. Again it follows the same. A, B, C, C. Now, the next stanza has 8 lines. Then again. A. Sly, fly. B. Then again here. Sing, wing. C. Head, led. D. So, it follows the same pattern. Here again 8 lines. Fly, by. A. Then never drew, hue. Drew, hue, same sound. Again, think, fast. Don't take last, it is fast. At last comes along with this. Fly by, drew, hue. No, at last comes here. So, last, fast. C. Then again, D. So, last, fast. The at last goes along with this line. Then the last line is read, heed, I fly. A, B. So, it has a equal, same type of device. So, this is your rhyming scheme. Sorry. Then you have, I already told you the number of stanzas and how it is divided. Now, when you talk about the figure of speech, you have first thing called consonants. Consonants, if you see, are consonant sounds that are found in the middle and end of a word in the same line. So, this is what you have to find, that is called as consonants. And here you have the second line or the first stanza, you have this, second line. It is the prettiest little parlour. So, if you see there, you will find tis, T sound is repeated. Tis, prettiest, little. So, T sound is repeated. So, this is a consonance. Then, if you see, again another consonant in the next one, way, winding. There you find 2. Then again you have consonant sound in this I am sure, you're very welcome. Here the verse sound, very, welcome, will. So you can see the verse sound is repeated. So this is consonants. And again here in the last you will see the third last line of the last stanza, l sound. L sound, that is idle, silly, flattering. So this is the consonants. So now you know what a consonance is. Next is assonance. Assonance is same but vowel sound. That is vowel sound letters. Vowel sounds, again it will be in the middle of the word. Middle of the word, if you see here, repetition of vowel sounds. So if you see in the second line again, you have here again, I is repeated. Here T was repeated in the consonants. Then you have I vowel being repeated. Is, prettiest, little, ittle. Can you see? So 3 times it is repeated. I is a vowel sound. So it is called an assonance. Again in this stanza you will see second stanza, third line, you have these two words, drawn around. Drawn around, again you get the ow sound. Ow, ow, ow. So this is again repeated. So it is a vowel sound. So this is again an assonance. Then you come up, then we'll go to the next figure of speech, that is alliteration. We already know alliteration, that is consonant alliteration, that is same sound, usually consonant sound, that is found only in the beginning of the word. Beginning of the word, and that is in the same line again. All should be in the same line. That you must be very careful. Then alliteration, and here if you see there are many alliteration words. Here can see this also, this same sound, if it is in the beginning, can be taken. Say for example alliteration, say first line, will walk, W sound. So this is alliteration. Then again you have alliteration here, can come, see. So again that is an alliteration. So when you come across words which start with the same consonant sound in the beginning of the word on the same line, then it is called alliteration. Then you have a simile. Simile is usually an open comparison. And how can you say an open comparison when you find words like as or like? And now here you have an open comparison when you see where here in this stanza you find the diamond bright. Your eyes are like diamond bright. So the eyes are compared to the brightness of a diamond. So bright and beautiful the eyes are looking. And dull as lead. Can you see? As, like. So you can see like here, and you also have the term as. So there is a simile here. There is a comparison of the eyes to a diamond and the dullness of a lead. So this is a simile. Then you have another figure of speech, repetition. Here lots of repetitions are used, that is mainly used to emphasize. Emphasize means to show the importance or significance of something. Now see, for example, you have a repetition here where the fly says, oh, no. So no, one no would have been enough. But again she says another no. So there is a repetition here. That is to emphasize the firmness of the fly. Same here you come across, next one, here also, oh, no. Then again, next line, never wake again. So again it is repeated, never. Then again you have another here, no. Then again you have another repetition, come, hither. If you see here, hither, here, come here. Twice it is repeated. Again another one here, thinking only of a brilliant, thinking only of a crested head. So this thinking only of her is repeated in these two lines. That is also called as repetition. And again you see okay. So this is about the repetition, mainly for emphasizing or showing importance. So this is about repetition. Then you have the tone. What is the tone or the whole formation? What understanding do you get? That is flattery and deception. Flattery and deception. That is through overpraising someone or falsely praising someone, we are deceiving them. We are cheating them. We are deceiving. That is the tone. Then you have another figure of speech called elision. Elision is nothing but an omission of a sound or syllable. Omission of sound or syllable. Here if you notice, certain places where the poet is not using the whole word. I am, see here, I, an apostrophe M. Again here if you see, I have, I'll, So all these are, she has used all short forms. I've. So like this. So when you omit something in between or a syllable or a sound, then it is called an elision. Then we have another figure of speech which is called enjambment. Enjambment is when a verse suddenly breaks in the middle. A verse breaks in between, suddenly breaks in the middle. That is, here there is one breaking here. If you see, I told you, poor foolish thing, at last. I told it has to come here, but it breaks and it starts again here. So this is along with this. But why is it given separately? That is purposely to show, it will give you two meanings, two purpose. Two purpose it shows. One purpose is, at last, the first purpose is to show that the spider has at last caught his victim. The second purpose is, at last the fly has fallen a victim. So it gives two purpose or two meanings are found here. Then you already know what a fable is. It's a fiction. It is an unrealistic story, an inspired story, but the characteristics will be with the human traits, but animals, plants, inanimate objects, all will be used instead of animals. And the last thing is anthropomorphism. You must know what this is. Anthropomorphism is another figure of speech where a non-human character is given human traits and behavior. So now, if you notice, usually animals don't have something called parlor, they don't have a looking glass, a mirror, or they don't have a living room, or they don't have winding stairs, they don't have a pantry. So all these things are found only in a human house, in a place where human beings live. But here, all these are found in the house of a spider, in a cobweb, in a web. So this web is having all the traits of a house. So this shows that all these are thrown to all the human being traits are found in this web. So this gives, and also another thing you will see, I already told you, human beings become flattered very easily, especially women. Here you should see the fly is a she. She is usually connoted with a woman, and these women are really taken up when you say you look very beautiful. They are very proud, they are very happy. So if you see, when the spider used the term, that particular fly was taken up by that. So it became very proud. And these are the human touches that you see. The pride, the vanity that is clubbed with the woman, and how the spider uses it. So all these also can serve as, you can also say it as metaphor where the comparison is not openly seen. It is compared with human beings, but is not openly seen. It can be called a metaphor, and since it is a trait which is found only in human beings, but it is converted to a animal in a living place, that is also called as anthropomorphism. So this is about the spider and the fly. We can see how the spider at last comes successful in catching its prey. So this is about the poem. Thank you.